It's Hugh Tuck. Hugh, now you're going to be talking about creating, before there was Atari, before there was Xbox, before there was Pong even?
Even.
So Hugh created the world's first coin-operated video game. Incredible. What was it called?
It was called Galaxy Game, and the quick brief history was my friend from high school, Bill Pitts, said, I want to bring you up to the Stanford Artificial Intelligence Center, which at that time there was no security. So we just went there at 12 o'clock at night. He brought me in. And upstairs they had people working on the first mechanical arms ever built and people working with the first voice recognition ever built. And in this one room they had a CRT terminal, and it had a little sun and two little spaceships that were rotating around it. And you could shoot each other, and the sun had gravity and everything was realistic. And it ran on what's called a PDP-10 computer, which is a huge mainframe computer, and that's what it took to run this little game.
All right, wait, don't give any more of the presentation.
Okay.
You're going to have to come over here in September, and here's Hugh's presentation.
In 1962, Space War became a popular video game at the Artificial Intelligence Research Centers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, or MIT. The game was never capable of becoming any kind of commercial success due to the technology limitations at the time. Only computer programmers could really play the game, and at odd times like 2 a.m. when the mainframe was idle. However, in 1970, the PDP-11 minicomputer was introduced by Digital Equipment Corporation. Bill Pitts was a recent Stanford AI alum, and he and his high school friend Hugh Tuck formed their own company, Computer Recreations Incorporated, in June 1971 with the primary goal of evolving Space War into a coin-operated arcade game. The game took about 3 months to make, but there was one issue: the name. At the time, the word war had a very negative reputation around campus, so the name was changed from Space War to Galaxy Game. According to Stanford University, the game used a PDP-11 or 20 computer, a simple point-plotting display interface, and a Hewlett-Packard 1300A electrostatic display. The PDP computer cost $14,000, and the display cost $3,000. Throwing in some additional costs in there, the game cost approximately $20,000 to make. In terms of how the game was supposed to regenerate money, the cost to play the game was 10 cents or 25 cents for 3 games. You could get a free game if your ship still survived with fuel when finishing the initial game. The Golden Age arcade historian interviewed Bill Pitts around the late 90s/early 2000s. Pitts touched on the cost and challenges of developing the game. Quote, "When we built the first machine, we didn't expect to make money. We knew it was costing a lot of money to build one machine, and what we wanted to do was see how much business we could generate, and then we could go back and figure out how cheap we had to make the machine to really be successful. But when we encountered such a huge wave of enthusiasm from the people that were playing the game, we forgot what our plan was. We were just out of college and we're not business people, so we decided that we would amortize the cost of the computer by having it drive up to 4 consoles, and each console had 2 players. So we embarked on building version 2, and that had fiberglass casing and a lot more tooling, and meant buying another computer and more displays, and that's how we ran up to $60,000 in expenses. While it could have driven 4 consoles, what we ended up putting at Stanford, because it was all they had room for, was the second version that had a PDP-11 inside one of the fiberglass cases, and it drove both systems. You could either drive those 2 consoles as 2 totally separate games, or you could interlink the 2 and have 4-player games where they were all fighting each other. That second version of Galaxy Game was released in June 1972 and was installed at the coffee house at Tessiter Union. It received a display update that allowed it to be more cost-effective to develop for more machines. It remained at the coffeehouse until May 1979, and Stanford reports that it was popular with lines of 10 to 20 people gathering to play. The Golden Age arcade historian reports that it made about $60,000. Quote, "The system at Stanford and the student union always did well. The other system I had, I moved it all over the place and I never did well. Somehow the Stanford community really appreciated this game and they were willing to read a legal-sized document of instructions. In other places, they just didn't want to do that." Eventually, the machine was disassembled due to the display processor becoming unreliable. It was essentially the end of Galaxy Games' run in video game history. However, the game was then brought to the computer history exhibits at Stanford University. There, the work to get the game operational again began. Ted Panofsky, who had built the display processor that was the main cause of issues, began work on restoring it. With the help of Doug Brittlinger, Paul Mancuso, and Victor Scheinman, Galaxy Game was eventually restored. In December 1997, the restored Galaxy Game was installed on the 5th floor of the Stanford Computer Science Department's Gates building and was free for students to play. After being there for 2 years, the game was then moved to the Computer History Center at Ames. This may or may not be the same as the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California, where the game reportedly resides now. Galaxy Game has a rich history, but how exactly did it play? Well, much like Space War, it was a simple game that involved 2 spaceships that were both controlled by players. In the middle of the screen was a star that acted as a gravity well to increase the challenge of flying around during combat and would pull in players. Both ships have limited torpedoes and fuel, and torpedoes are fired one at a time with a cooldown. If a ship goes off screen, it will appear on the other side, much like a lot of arcade games. The game is an overall improvement of Space War, but it also offers optional modifications such as faster ships, faster torpedoes, removing the star and gravity well, reversing the gravity to have it push players away, and to remove the kind of wraparound effect. Everything was controlled in classic arcade fashion with a joystick and panel of buttons. Galaxy Game remains in video game history as the building foundations of what the culture of video games would become not longer after it was first in the coffee house. Players huddling around watching others play before getting a turn themselves. Something we'll really start to touch on in the next episode when we discuss the beginnings of Atari.